We rode off into the desert. We wandered around for 4 days and 4 nights until finally across New Mexico and into Arizona, we landed in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's the capital of the state, and there we saw the God, thank you! Ah! Now, we're in Phoenix, we're having a great time. Have you ever had this experience? You're eating lunch at someone's house, you're staying with some people because you're playing concerts in town, right? And you're staying at their house, everything's fine, you're eating lunch, getting ready to leave the next day. About halfway through lunch, you think you've seen it all. But halfway through lunch, your hosts look up at you and they say, hey, guess what you're eating? We're like, spaghetti? They're like, yeah, that's spaghetti. Guess what's on the spaghetti? We're like, tomato sauce? They're like, yeah, that's tomato sauce. But guess what's in the tomato sauce? We're like, meatballs? They're like, those are not meatballs. We're like, really? They said, what are we eating? And so they say, that's lumen. They say, that's what we sell. You see, we were staying in Phoenix, so we were staying with some people who had a home marketing business, right? And that's what they sold. They sold lumen. And it was a soy-based product, they told us, that could be shaped into anything you wanted. And they said, how do you like it? We were like, it's fantastic. And so as we left, they said, you know, you guys are going to be heading across the desert for a couple more days. You better take some lumen. And so they gave us some vacuum-sealed bags of lumen that we understood we could shape into anything we wanted. Halfway across the desert later that week, George was like, you think we can shape it into a pickup truck? Could we possibly shape that stuff into some Gatorade around here? Anyway, you have to accept gifts, though. As you're riding your bicycle around the country, you have to accept gifts. Like, people give you whatever, and that's how we survived, was on the hospitality of people. And honestly, that's how we met God. You know, people would give us, they'd exercise and show us hospitality, and they were to us the face of God along the way. We, like, for example, back in Houston, but some of the gifts were funny. I want to tell you, back in Houston, Texas, we played at this school one day. And we sang at the assembly in the morning at 8 a.m. Then we visited classrooms all day until the afternoon. Well, during the day, the students decided, you know, we should give Lost and Found a gift before they leave. And one of the enterprising teachers said, I know, during the day, each student should go out behind the building and collect his or her own favorite rock. And then they could decorate it with their name. And we could give them to Lost and Found before they leave. Great, that was fantastic. We're in the parking lot of the school, it's 3 o'clock, the bell rings, all the kids are going home, and each individual student in grades kindergarten through 8th grade would come up to us and present us with their stone. They'll be like, oh, thank you, Stephanie. Oh, thank you, Andrew. That's fantastic. And this is what we look like, with 300 pounds of rocks riding our bicycles away from Houston. Yeah, so if you're ever down there near the interstate in Houston and you notice there's a lot of rocks with kids' names on them, don't mention it to the kids at that school. Anyway, we had a great time, you know, traveling all this way. We were riding across the desert. Oh yes, okay, so we got all the way across Arizona, and we were at the border of California. We were in this town called Yuma, Arizona. And we're staying in this little motel out by the state highway. The thing is, you know, we stay in those motels a lot. You know, when you're riding your bicycles, we always stay in the kind of motels where you're laying in your bed here, but if you reach over here and open your room door, that's the parking lot. You know what I mean? Like, you want to call the front desk and go, hello, my room's fine, but there's no hotel with my hotel room. You know? But we always stay in those kind of motels because you can bring your bikes inside and they're a little less expensive. And whenever we do, we always leave the door open, you know, because you never know. It gives a little air in there. You never know who might come by. So we're staying in our motel room. There we are in room number 13. And George looks out the door and he sees this cat coming across the parking lot. And as you can see, that cat is really sad and bleeding from the mouth. His tongue. Oh, he has a tongue. Yeah, he has a tongue. And he's parched because he's been living in the desert. And he was very skinny because he'd been living in the desert for so long. The poor thing obviously hadn't eaten in quite a long time. Yeah. In fact, he was in the desert for so long he was extremely, extremely thin. Yeah. So he comes across the parking lot, and George, an animal lover, decides to take the lumen and shape it into wet cat food. And being a beginner, this wasn't the most challenging thing to shape it into. And so he put it in this dish that he had with him that said cat, and he set it out here next to that cement barrier in the parking space outside our motel room, and the cat came over, and the cat smelled the food, became angry, all of his hair stood straight up, and he ran off into the desert. And so the cat was offended by the lumen, but that was okay. We just, we packaged it up and sent it home to our parents as a gift. Hey, here's a gift from Arizona. Anyway, we left Arizona and we came into the great golden state of California. Now, we had a great time, of course, in California, moving mountains. And oh yes, it's shrinking the mountains. We came into California and we were down there near San Diego. Believe it or not, we got stuck in a blizzard in this town called El Centro, California. We were apprehended by the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol came by. We were riding our bicycles in a blizzard. We had no choice. We had to keep going, to get where we were needing to go. We just happened to be on bicycles, and it happened to be a blizzard, but we had to continue. And we saw a big sign that said, "Must use chains." We looked down, we were like, we got chains. And so we just continued on our bikes. Border Patrol came along and forced us to get in his truck. And the Border Patrol had guns, and so we complied. And the Border Patrol took us to a house nearby and made us stay with the family for that night. We literally, the Border Patrol came to the door with guns and said, "These are two people I found riding their bicycles through the blizzard. They're going to stay with you totonight." And we stayed with the family. We had a great time. We were like, of course the family was all upset, and we were like kind of sad, but we ended up having a great time. Totally fun time. And so we continued out of El Centro. We came into San Diego. Okay, between San Diego and Los Angeles, we're riding our bicycles up along the Pacific Coast Highway, along the along the Pacific Ocean. Let me try to be Pacific. Right? So we're riding our bicycles up along the ocean. At some point on that ride, in order to go around the nuclear reactors at San Onofre, you sort of have to ride the bicycle trail goes into Camp Pendleton for a brief time. And Camp Pendleton is a United States Marine base, where the United States government trains young men and women to be the United States Marines, of all things. And so we have to ride our bicycles onto this Marine base, but no problem. We're just riding along, and we think we've seen it all, no problem. We're riding our bicycles along. Pretty soon, at some point I realized, like, we haven't really seen anything in about an hour. We haven't seen any cars, we haven't seen any people. Most notably, we haven't seen an ocean. Just sand dunes and mountains. And I'm thinking, I wonder if everything's okay. And pretty soon I start seeing these diamond-shaped yellow warning signs that have a picture of them on them of a military tank. Like they don't want you by accident to be like, clink. And so, like they want us to run over the tank. And so then I see these signs stretched out across the sand dunes that say, "Caution, tank crossing." And I think, maybe this isn't the best place to be riding our bicycles. But when you're on your bicycle, the last thing you want to do is turn around and go back 10 miles to see if you took a wrong turn. So you just keep pressing forward, And we continue along. Well, pretty soon I hear this noise behind me, like, and I look back and the hillside is illuminated with red and white flashing lights. And I look back, George is riding just a little bit behind me, and George is there standing next to this guy. The world's tallest Marine policeman. Yeah. The Marine policeman is angry. In fact, he has no neck. He's so angry, he's got no neck. His head has come completely off of his neck. And he's angry. He's steaming, as you can see, from the top of the pan he had to wear on his head. And he's mad because the U.S. government made him wear this onesie. And his feet are like springs so he can jump and run. And his hands are made of guns. And he's wearing a Hannibal Lecter mask.
And his teeth.
Oh, he's got teeth. And he's dressed like a pumpkin. And so, anyway, he's very angry because what had happened was, George and I had wandered off the bicycle path 10 miles ago. And so now we're 10 miles out into this Marine base, and we're in an area of the Marine base where the United States government tests American weapons. Now, how it is that two Christian singing bicycle riders happened by accident to evade the security precautions of the free world, we don't know. However, the Marine was angry. So, I was already in trouble by the time I got back there, because as you can see in this illustration, my hair was a lot longer at the time. And I was riding up a little bit ahead.
Every rose has its thorn.
And so George's back there, and the Marine has already said to George, he goes, "Is that a man or a woman up there?" And so I come back in my most manly voice, I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he says, "Let me see your ID." And I was like, hemina, and I reach in my pocket and I try to find an ID and I hand him my license, and he takes it from me, and he looks at it and he goes, "All right," and he says to George, he goes, "Let me see your ID." Well, you remember, back in the fracas and pecus, George lost his wallet. Now, so he didn't have his license with him, but he had written to his parents back in Niagara Falls, and they sent him his birth certificate so he could stop at the Department of Motor Vehicles someplace and get a new license. So the Marine says, "Let me see your ID." George says, "I have my birth certificate." And the Marine says, "Let me see it." So George reaches into his bike bag and he gets his birth certificate and he hands it up to the Marine, and the Marine takes it from him. And his birth certificate says, "Place of birth, Niagara Falls," or it says Niagara County, place of birth, Niagara County. That's where we're born. Marine gets the birth certificate. He's turning red and he's steaming. He's angry, as you can see in this illustration. And we're like, what? He's like, "Y'all were born in Nicaragua?" And we're like, no. And then we were able to explain our way out of it. Okay, how many R's in county? And so he was finally willing to let us live, and he made us take a big detour, but he let us leave the Marine base and continue on our way up to Los Angeles. We continued up the great coast of California, all the way up north. Oh, we rode through the redwood trees up there. The trees are so big, you can ride your bicycle through the trunks where they split at the bottom. I mean, there's these huge, fantastic trees. It was all fantastic and amazing up there. We got up north, we went to Oregon. We made a right, we came to Salem, Oregon. That's the capital of the state. And there we saw the government. Thank you. And we continued north to Olympia, Washington. That's the capital of the state. And there we saw the government. Thank you. And we continued north and we made a right turn at the tonsils of America. Now, so yeah, we continued, we made a right turn, we went through the great state of Washington, the Evergreen State, continued across there, we came into Idaho, and then we're in Montana. Okay, here's a free piece of advice. If you're riding your bicycles across the United States, and by all means do, because it's a fantastic experience, but when you cross the Rocky Mountains, cross them in New Mexico, because it's a lot easier than crossing them in Montana. Because what happens in Montana is they're a lot taller and they're a lot steeper. And so if you're accustomed to spending most of your time at sea level, and then you decide to do something physically exhausting or demanding for 8 hours at 8,000 feet of altitude or more, what happens is you get this altitude sickness, as you can see in this fine illustration. That's what happened to us in Montana. Fortunately, we were in Montana, so no one was there to see it. George also got sick on that experience. Yeah. It hit me kind of hard. So we continued out of the great big sky country of Montana. We came into the Peace Garden state of North Dakota, where of course we sang it, "Home, home on the range for boys." And we continued on into the middle part of North Dakota, where we stopped in Bismarck, capital of the state. There we saw the governor's. Thank you. Not only did we see the governor's mansion, we went to the governor's office. We sat at the governor's desk, and we drank coffee from the governor's coffee cup. The governor at the time, his name was George Sinner. Sinner, yeah. A good name for a governor. George Sinner. So, we continued out of the great state of North Dakota, and we came into the North Star State, the land of 10,000 lakes, Minnesota. We continued all across the state of Minnesota until we came to St. Paul, capital of the state, and there we saw the governor's mansion. We continued out of the great state of Minnesota. We came into the Badger State of Wisconsin and back through the land of Lincoln, Hoosier State, and then we came across the Buckeye State, the Keystone State, and back to the entire state of New York. And we were done with our bicycle trip. And that's what happened on our bicycle trip. We rode about almost 8,000 miles. We played 270 concerts. We stayed with 310 families. It took us 340 days. And now you know the story.
Exactly.
So that's what happened. Hey, you guys are so nice.